Welcome to Spark TV.
Thanks, Danny. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. I feel like it's good vibes, leading into a new 2025. So I'm excited to chat to you about biz today.
Lovely. Yeah, the new year's off to a pretty hectic start already, but I think it's always nice, isn't it? You come into a new year, new goals, and yeah, it's nice to kick it off with a chat like this.
Totally. I'm all for like arbitrary dates and energy. I know it's like yesterday was just the day before, it was 2024, but for
Nothing's
some
really
reason
changed.
today, but I'll take it. If it gives me fresh energy, I don't care.
I agree.
Oh, so good. Well, let's start out by telling everyone who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Carla. I run a HR and training consultancy called Connect Lead Achieve. The majority of our clients are in the community services space, but we do some work with other SMEs as well.
So good. So, what does HR even mean? So, when
Mm,
we start our own businesses, we
yeah.
are often, all of these things, all of these terms we need to know. What is HR?
Where do I start? So I think often when people think about HR, they think about hiring and firing, right? Like I think if you're running a business and they're often the times that you want to look at your HR practices. But in my experience, HR is a lot more broad than that. So HR encompasses everything from your values and your culture within your organization, through to how you treat your people and, what's the workplace that you want people to show up to? And, what kind of strategies do you have in place to keep people engaged and passionate about the work that you're doing? And of course, right through to the not so great stuff, when things aren't going as planned, how do we help to support people to maybe exit our businesses because they're not the right fit for us, or maybe we've outgrown them or they've outgrown us? And how do we do that in a way that's respectful and compassionate and compliant?
I really love that. So I was actually talking to a HR person the other day and I ignorantly made the mistake of they were talking about something. I was like, "Well, is that what you do?" And then she's, "Yeah, we do that as well." So and that's why I asked because I have been guilty of thinking of it as hiring, firing, perhaps career development, professional development,
Yeah.
but not so much in the nitty-gritty of culture and,
Mm,
getting the most out of people in the workplace, and I actually think that's so cool because
mm,
I know so my other business, Scrunch, at its peak was about 20 people, and goddamn, fostering
yeah.
culture
Yeah.
and looking after all of those humans and trying to keep them all happy when they come into work
Yes.
with their personal lives as well as business expectations. It's
Yeah.
really challenging as a business owner.
Yeah. And I think it's even more challenging at the moment because there has been so much change in the HR space as well. Um, I'm sure everyone heard about the right to disconnect
Oh my
legislation
god,
at the end of last year, but
that was
that's
not
actually
me
a
rolling my eyes.
it's okay. I often talk about HR often makes people have the hair on the back of their neck stand up. They're like, oh, that feels really prickly. So I try and make sure, I often say, let's put the human back in human resources because it really is about how do we actually support our people to do their best work, which as business owners allows us to be able to, create workplaces that people want to work in and helps us to achieve our goals too. But I guess, like there's a whole lot of change that's happening. And as business owners, it can be really hard to keep on top of that. And if
Hmm.
you're in a small business, you're probably already wearing multiple hats anyway. So you're probably the IT consultant and you're probably the marketing manager and you're probably the social media, director. And, you're probably wearing 1,000 different hats on any given day. If one of those is HR and learning and development and all of those things as well, it can be really hard to stay across what are the things that you absolutely need to do to make sure that your business is meeting the expectations that are required.
Oh my God. So, so true. And you're right. Like the world has really changed in the last,
Mm,
oh my God. I mean, I think that from a business point of view, the world changes all the time. I know we've kind of
right.
had a really big one in the last few years, but so I've been in business for about 12 years and I can't
Mm.
remember a stressful year
Yeah.
of not a not stressful year where things were changing. Seriously.
Yes. Yeah. There's always something going on, isn't there?
Totally. So when do you think, so in a small business life cycle,
Mm.
when do you think is the right time to be thinking about HR?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say as soon as you are going to employ another person, I think that you really need to start thinking about what does HR look like for us. Now, I don't
Mm.
think that means that you need to have a dedicated resource for that, but I think it is important to start to think about, okay, what does this person's role actually look like? How much do we need to pay them? Are there awards and are there other, other agreements that we need to make sure we're across so that we're doing the right thing by that person when they do come on board. And then what happens when they decide that they want to change the way that they work, increase their hours or decrease their hours? And so, you know, anytime that you're employing somebody, you do need to start to think about this from a more strategic perspective, and just make sure that you are ticking the boxes that you need to as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do love that. And I think that, as business owners, so nice to be able to have somebody to go to talk about this stuff with. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I think
can't
so too.
exactly talk to the employee about it. Then they're
Yeah.
obviously not the experts. So to have someone like you to go to just to take that weight of, what does that strategy look like? What do I need to know? What are best practices? And how can I create something that's aligned to the thing that I want to create in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you actually recruit the people that are going to help you to progress your dreams as well, right? Because, you can recruit somebody who absolutely has the skills to do the job, but if you haven't already worked out what you value most, it's very hard to recruit someone who's going to be the right fit to help you progress, in the way that you want to as well, and who's going to represent your business in the way that you want them to for your customers as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really interesting. People are so complex. It
Mm.
makes sense to be thinking about it a little bit more strategically, other than I just need this task done.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
good. I love it. So, how did you even get into running your own business?
Mm. Well, I started my HR career quite a long time ago. I actually worked in a very corporate environment for about 15 years. So I was in HR and learning roles at a law firm for a really long time. After that, I had kind of decided I was never going to do HR again, and I and so went and worked in community services. So I had done a counselling degree when I was a lot younger and decided I wanted to go and put that into practice. So I went
Wow.
and became a counsellor. I worked in a drug and alcohol rehab and worked my way through and, became a leader within that organisation, and then went on to leadership roles in other community service organisations. And what I realized is that every one of those organizations had the same challenges. So they were
Mm.
fairly small, not for profits who really didn't have the resources to have in house HR support. So it often just ended up being me that would do it anyway.
Anyway,
So,
yeah.
so
Oh,
in trying to
funny.
kind of move away from that, I found that I couldn't quite escape it. So a couple of years ago, or about 4 years ago, I was doing a bit of a mix between working as a COO at a disability provider, disability services provider, and providing some consultancy and training and support to some other organisations.
Mm.
And a couple of years ago, decided that I'd turn my side hustle into my main gig, I suppose. So now I do this full time.
Wow, that's so awesome. Isn't it interesting how, sometimes we think the grass is greener or we think we're done with something and the path
Mm.
just leads us full circle.
It does. It keeps on pulling you back in. And I think the other part is I came from the way that HR was done when I first started in HR looks quite different, I think, to what people would think of being a HR now. So
Mm.
I loved the opportunity to actually be able to get to know the people and to work alongside them to truly help them succeed in their roles. And I
Mm.
think HR at some point became a bit of a tick and flick and a risk management function.
Yeah.
So I try really hard to really focus on how I learned to do HR. And that's, really relationship building and supporting people to grow and develop within an organization. So sometimes in doing that, you do actually tick those boxes quite easily anyway. But it's just kind of trying to flip it on its head a little bit and, make HR a little bit less scary because I know it can feel a little bit overwhelming for people.
Yeah, and how nice that you can take the best of each of the worlds that you've
Mm,
been in,
yeah.
and then align it to your values and create a business that is HR the
Mm,
way you think HR should be.
yeah. Yeah. Yes.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And how did you find navigating moving from employee to business owner? I mean, theoretically you go, well, at least I've got all the HR skills. How did you go with all of the other things?
Yeah, look, I'm probably still fairly new in that journey, to be honest. And there are still times, where I go, the ups and downs of that is very different to just knowing that you've got, you show up at, 8:30 every morning, you work till 5, and there's something that feels very safe and secure about that, doesn't it?
Yes, sometimes I like, dream about what that was like.
Yeah, it's not that long ago for me, so I can kind of still remember what that was like. Having said that, like most business owners, I've got lots of things going on in my life. I'm a mum of teenage boys. I've, got, I love to go on adventures and travel. And I guess having the opportunity to have the flexibility to work around those other things is a real benefit, I think, in running your own business.
Yeah, absolutely. I think oftentimes, we go into our own businesses thinking freedom, flexibility, and then they
Mm,
swing towards no freedom, no flexibility. And then it's like we
yeah.
kind of have to pull ourselves back and remember
Yes.
why we're doing it in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
Mm. What do you
Mm.
think's been one of the biggest challenges that you've faced running your own business?
Mm. I think it's just my own insecurities, my own worries, my own anxieties. I don't think that there's anything more challenging than sometimes the conversation we have in our own head.
Oh my God, just love that you're saying this because I'm having that day right now.
Oh no.
I
Oh, what's going
know.
on, Danny? Why?
Seriously though, it's just the weird, like there is a to do. I know exactly what to do. Like it's so wild. I'm
Mm,
like, I know exactly what I need to do to achieve my goals. And some
mm.
days it is just that little voice in your brain hole that is being
Yes.
awful. And you're like, and it's like a struggle between just do the stuff on the to-do list, woman,
Yes.
and your head going,
Yes.
oh my God, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. But I think we are our own worst critics. And,
Yes.
like I would never speak to someone else the way that I speak to myself in my own head. So I know that it's not
We need
fair
our
and I
own
know that
HR
it's not okay.
person.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
I'm
Our own
like,
internal
I'm
HR.
firing myself.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my
I
God.
often say that, when you've got to, pay the invoice or, when you're doing all of these extra things, the things that don't necessarily come naturally to you, that sometimes the really nitty-gritty admin detail oriented stuff that, you'd love for somebody else to do. I often go, oh, geez, I wish that admin chick could pick up her game and knowing that it's actually yourself.
I
Gee,
love
payroll
that.
really let us down this week.
That is so good. That's what I say to my husband about like house stuff. I'm like, oh, that maid
Oh,
in the house, we
yes,
really need to fire
yeah.
her. She is just not on it this
She's
month.
not doing a good job.
That's actually my subtle dig at I'm not the maid, I'm not doing the jobs.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips for how, if that little voice inside our heads is
Mm.
being a little awful, do you have any tips or strategies that you currently use to pull yourself out of that?
Mm. I'm probably very lucky that I've got an incredible group of people around me that I can rely on for that. So,
I love
you know,
that.
I've got some amazing friends, family, mentors that, they're the ones that I tend to reach out to when like, okay, I need a bit of a pep talk. Can you help me? So yeah, I think it's really about that network of people that you build, who are
Mm.
the confidants that you have that, will absolutely hold you accountable and say, hey, girlfriend, you just need to, pull your finger out and get on with that. Or to know when you do actually need, you know, huddle or someone to hold your hand for just a minute or to take the reins even for just a little while too. So I think it's about relationships for me and knowing who it is that you draw upon or call upon in those moments.
Yeah, that is actually fantastic advice. Having a support network. I
Mm,
think in all levels of life, there's
yeah, I
certainly
agree.
like people in different areas. Like some people you won't go to for the business stuff, some
Yeah.
people you won't go to for the husband stuff, some
Yeah.
people you won't go to for the kids stuff. Like there's all kind of
Yes.
layers of kind of people you can tap into. So important to
Yeah,
have that network around you.
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And then,
Mm.
knowing as well when you do just need to go, okay, just stop, just get on with it, just do it. I think sometimes, it is actually just starting something because once
Oh,
you start,
yes.
it's often not a problem, right? But you can go around in circles. Whereas if you just go, okay, one, two, three, we're diving in,
Yes, I
and
love
just
that.
getting
That
on with
is
it.
it's so true. I think sometimes you think about that like of things you procrastinate over forever. You do them and you're like, "Oh my God, that took me 3 minutes.
Yeah,
I've
that's
been
right.
putting that job off for 3 months."
Exactly. Yes, it's so true. Why do we do that? I wish maybe I need to do like a bit more psychology study or something so I can get to the bottom of that.
Please. Well, if you figure it out, if you can please let us all know, because I don't think we're alone in this. Oh, that is so good. It is true
Yeah.
though. There's a good Mel Robbins actually has
Oh,
that
yeah.
book, the 5 4 3 2 1, where
Yes.
when you're kind of in that stuck place, 5 4 3 2 1, and
Yes.
just go.
Just do it.
Mm,
Mm,
I love that.
mm,
That is so good.
mm.
And how are you growing your business in 2025? So what's going to be some
Yeah.
strategies that you use to find new business in this year?
Yeah, look, at the risk of sounding like I'm repeating myself, I actually think it's about relationships.
No, I
Um,
love it. This is good.
so my goal for this year is to really make sure I've got strong professional networks as well as the personal networks. But a lot of the work that I do, particularly in the community services space, is really supported by some industry bodies that I think are really valuable for information and support for those organisations. So the last 12 months, I've been really focused on how do I build that industry alignment so that I can help to grow the business in that way. So it's really just cementing some of those relationships and continuing to invest in that space. And from the SME side of things, getting involved in the Chamber of Commerce and some of those other networks as well. In Brisbane, we're really lucky. There's some great networking events, and some awesome people that are truly there to try and support other SMEs and support other people trying to really develop their businesses as well.
That is so good. I think relationships are everything. I mean, I don't even
Mm.
think it matters if you're in business or not. If you want to advance your career or
Yes,
kind of do anything, relationships are just so important.
I
So if
agree.
you mentioned events and strengthening relationships, have you been like, how do you even get in touch with these people? Do you
Mm,
join communities? Do you reach out cold email people? Like, how do you
mm,
even like get started on that as a
yeah.
strategy?
Well, I'm really bad at sales, so I feel really uncomfortable if anything feels like I'm trying to sell anything. I'm so bad at it, Danny, and I know I need to work on it, but what
I
I
will
am
whip you into shape.
I know. I knew that there'd be some advice coming, but the thing for me is try and get things off, like trying to get things away from an online environment. So,
Mm,
we are often bombarded with emails and, LinkedIn requests and, ads on wherever we turn. And I actually try really hard to convert that into an actual conversation. So, if someone looks like they're into similar things or they might be a potential new client, I try and arrange a time to actually have a conversation and just find out where they're at, what their business goals are, and then have some ongoing conversations with them to try and seal the deal in a much more gentle approach. Um, yeah, and I think for me that just feels a lot more comfortable than trying to do a cold call or an email blast or anything like that. So yeah, that's where I'm at the moment. It might be a slower approach, but what I'm finding is that the clients then that I do bring on board do seem to have a really quite a good values alignment because you've taken the time to get to know them. So I think that they then appreciate the way that we work at Connect Lead Achieve.
You know what? I just want to call out that you are not bad at sales. I think that your approach is incredible because I think that's one of the problems with the word sales is everyone has this perception that it's got to be super hard, super process driven, super
Mm,
like massive and I actually love that it's like, you know what? No, the way I sell is I have connections, I have conversations, I have values alignment, and if they're right for me, they're right for me.
mm,
Like that
mm,
is a sales strategy. And
mm.
I just think that the fact that you've identified what feels good for you so that you can have conversations about your business, I think that that's incredible.
Thank you. It feels sometimes like it's a slow process. And I
Mm.
think that sometimes, and sometimes I do feel a bit frustrated when you sort of go, we've been having this conversation for a while now.
Yeah. I think that's
But
just
also,
one-to-one sales in general though.
yeah. And
Mm.
being conscious of not wanting to push too hard, you know, knowing, I guess, when to kind of
Mm.
um, be a little bit more encouraging that they might
Mm.
need to sign up for some support.
I think it's so good. I often say that to people that I call it being a soft seller
Yeah,
because like so I've been this like a hard not hardcore salesperson, but my job role was sales when I was
yeah.
in corporate. And it is you go through the training and it's the ask the
Mhm.
open-ended questions and move them to this next stage and update your CRM.
Yes.
And it's really like, I guess that masculine energy
Yeah,
and
yeah.
push, push, push. And I think that's
Yes.
why I've gone all the way over to my strategy is I will just tell everyone on the planet what we do. And then if they're for me, they're for me. And if they're not, that's fine.
That's okay too.
That's okay too. So I've gone all the way over to like soft selling I call it that. I don't know if anyone else
Yes.
calls it that, but I just think you want it to feel good
Mm,
and you don't want, if people feel pressured into something,
yeah,
the actual delivery experience turns out crap anyway.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, and I think you run the risk of, people disconnecting
Yeah,
because they do feel like they're being pressured to do something that may or may not be quite right for them.
totally. And I always think that if you give people a positive experience, even if
Mm,
it's not right for them now, it might be
yeah,
in the future. So why not
yes,
leave on a great note and just
yeah,
keep them nurtured in the wind?
yeah, I think so. That feels more comfortable for me anyway.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. Now, I always like to wrap up these podcasts on one last
Yes.
piece of advice. So, reflecting on
Mm.
your time in business, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to another woman on her business journey?
Oh, okay. I think, is it okay to share two?
Oh my God, please do. Overachiever, of course.
I think the first thing is that you don't have to have all the answers.
Mm.
so much of what has happened in, the 4 years that I've been running my own business has felt completely accidental. And I think it's about being really open to opportunities and, being flexible and being able to kind of go with the flow a little bit that, okay, it might not be 100% aligned with what you thought that business plan was going to look like. That's actually okay. And sometimes the best outcomes and opportunities come from just having a crack and seeing where it goes. So that might feel a bit uncomfortable for some people, but for me, there's kind of some adventure in that, and I like that idea. Um, and then I think the second one is already what we've spoken about is to build that network, to know who are the people that are there to have you back and, to build you up when things are going well and to catch you if you fall, So to know who's your tribe, who are your people, and, to invest in those relationships.
I love it, Carla. You are absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your wisdom with the Spark community today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks so much, Danny. I've loved it. Hopefully we can chat again soon.
Definitely.